What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Great Men Podcast with Shane Sands. And man, I've got a great man with me. Not just a great man, one of my best friends, my brother from another mother. We're about to go watch his daughter get married, and that's freaking us all out. But Joe Nicoletti, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Good to be here, Shane. Good to be here.
It's ironic that this is a podcast that we're going to do about adult ADHD. And I'm not talking about everybody's a little ADHD. I'm talking about two mofos that are diagnosed, son, from like actual doctors and know it's true. We were both late. I was working on a Canva project, and then we both had a nice discussion on using noise canceling headphones to keep us from getting distracted on this show. Are we focused? Are we medicated? And are we ready to go? That's all I got to ask.
I think so. The fact that we got distracted by headphones by talking before talking about a ADHD topic is just hilarious.
Unbelievable, dude. It's unbelievable. Let's talk about the diagnosis first, because people throw ADHD around. It's kind of starting to piss me off, actually. I have long suspected it was actually very encouraging to watch you have the courage as my friend to go through the process, to get diagnosed, to really understand if it's true. And I remember when you got diagnosed, I was like, man, Joe did it. I've got to go do this. But dang, man, you got to jump through some freaking hoops. You know what I'm saying? To be able to even understand it. I've done doctors, therapy, finally got to talk to a psychiatrist. And then when I went through all the rigmarole, they were like, whoa, bro, I am surprised you're still alive. Like, you are as ADHD as anybody else I've ever seen. And, for me, it was a very emotional thing when they told me my diagnosis. And I can unpack that more here in a little bit. But one, how did you push that first domino to say, I need to go and check this out? Like, did people in your life point it out? Did you just start going down rabbit holes? And then what did it feel like, as an entrepreneur? We'll talk about your story here in a minute too, but like as an entrepreneur, as a dad, as a husband, as a great man, like what started the process and how did you feel when you got actually diagnosed with ADHD?
Oh man. Yeah. So the process for me started with my son, who's 11 right now, and started noticing some symptoms in him. Not like your typical hyperactive form of ADHD, which I don't have as well, which I think is a large part of why it goes so underdiagnosed, especially in
I think that's a
adults.
misnomer too.
Yeah, yeah.
The more I study this, that is actually not the right words to use with this diagnosis.
Yeah, it's sort of misleading because, and we all picture those kids, just bouncing off the walls and super hyperactive and all that. And there is a component of that, but not, there's so many different types of ADHD. And so I'm more hyperactive in my brain than I am physically. So I've always been pretty chill physically. And so, growing up, no teacher would have suspected that I had ADHD. And I was always a rather high functioning one. So I got good grades. I could study, but it took an extreme amount of effort for me to do those things where other kids just seem to kind of pull it off more naturally. And I always just thought, well, I just have to work harder. That was a story I told myself for most of my life. Well, watching my son have some of these symptoms, and of course, as more tools and research and books became available, that subjects talked about more and more. So I dove in and started reading several different books. Obviously it points the symptoms out, all these things. And as I'm reading these things, looking for these symptoms in my son, I'm going, wait a minute, this is like me to a T.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I start reading about how there's a genetic component usually.
Yep.
And then I started thinking about, oh, okay, well, where would my son get it from? And then I started thinking about my parents, and I'm like, my mother absolutely had this, like no doubt about it. And so then I started to become a little more convinced, and then studying it for myself. Took a few self tests online and so forth. And every single one of them I scored yes, you are a perfect candidate for this.
Mm.
And so for a while, several years, I've sort of known, I'm pretty confident that I have this. And like any ADHD brain, went down rabbit hole after rabbit hole and just deep dive research everything I could find out about it, and realized that it is a double-edged sword. It is part superpower, but also part hindrance, and learning how
Yes.
to balance those. And and I'm sure we'll unpack this, a lot of the strategies that I use in my own life, my whole adult life, I realized there were coping mechanisms for the ADHD. Like, you have to figure out how to build, systems around yourself to function
Totally.
correctly and succeed. And so, yeah, it was really that research. Then I finally came to the conclusion that, you know what, let me just go ahead and go the official route. talk to a specialist, get officially, get the official test, get officially diagnosed, and explore the concept of medicine, which I was historically sort of not necessarily against, but that was just to me like a last resort, because
Well,
there's also been talk about over medicating and all of that.
totally, man. And
And
I
I,
think that comes from the 80s. Like there
yeah,
was a
yeah,
huge stigma in the 80s. Like I actually, when I was a kid, I was they wanted to that's when ADD really started, like the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Like they started like looking for medications for kids. I think I think there is a baby in the bathwater here. A lot of it was they
mhm,
just wanted to calm some kids down. Some of that is true.
right,
And then there was also this receiving a label back then where people they would put you in special education if you had ADD. And there was a huge stigma against it. And my parents actually resisted it and told them, take that out of his record. My kids aren't going to be labeled like that. He's just crazy. I was very hyper when I was a kid, but that stigma persists even with the medication because the medication I think gets confused. It's an amphetamine, like if you take Adderall or something like that. There's Ritalin, all these. Do you do What do you do? What do you take?
I do Adderall. Hmm.
Adderall. Yeah. There's Vyvanse, which I think is Ritalin. I don't even know. Yeah, exactly what it is. But I think that stigma has persisted a lot, and it keeps adults, and we're shamed for it. Like you're lazy, you're procrastinating, you don't finish
Right.
anything, you're undisciplined. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea. I'm the most disciplined son of a gun you've ever met in your entire life because it takes 17 systems to make me make a cup of coffee in the morning. What are you talking
Right.
about? Undisciplined. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, yeah, the systems you have to build in are just kind of insane. I was always historically running last minute. I was known as the if you want Joe to be somewhere, you got to tell him it's 10 minutes before the actual time, and I was always frustrated by that, and really would beat myself up over it. And then
You're not
coming to
15 minutes early,
realize.
you're late. That's what everybody told me growing up. And I'm like, I don't even know I can't even see time, period. And you want me to be early? This makes no sense.
Yeah, the time blindness is very real. And, we typically always think, oh, I can finish just one more thing. Or, oh, it takes 10 minutes to get somewhere. I will leave 10 minutes before I have to get somewhere. And it's, but there was this one line in this one book that really changed my frame on this. Cause I always, I think subconsciously viewed getting on medication as, well, I'm officially admitting that I'm broken somehow. And that held me back for a while, but I read this one line. I can't remember the book. I can look it up after this, but it was a specialist who said, you wouldn't deny insulin to a diabetic.
Mm,
And basically, ADHD medication is insulin for
mm.
the diabetic.
Your
Like
brain.
that's the
Yeah.
equivalent. And so I started exploring that, and I was like, you know what? It can't hurt to try. And I was honestly exploring it for myself before deciding to go any certain route with my son. We're still kind of undecided on that, but
Oh, I got some comments on that from my doctor that's interesting because the medication is an interesting thing. You know me, I'm not afraid of medicine. I'm not afraid of trying a substance. I'll try anything twice. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
like the medicine is interesting because I had the medicine before it was prescribed to me, and it's what really your journey inspired me to have the courage to go start asking the right questions. And then I was at a buddy's house one day, and he is the most ADHD human being I've ever met in my entire life. But like he got Adderall, and we were sitting out on his porch, and he popped and he took his medicine, and I was like, "What is that?" And he goes, "Oh, it's my medicine, man. It really helps me focus. It really does these things." And I'm like Adderall?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Can I try one? I want to try one. I just want to see like what it would. Let me see what it makes me feel." And so he gave me an Adderall, and I took it. And the only way I can describe it, Jocelyn was sitting out there, he was sitting out there, and we were just relaxing, having a good time. And all of a sudden, the entire universe changed. It was like I stepped into an alternate dimension. My whole life, I feel like I have been aware of everything all at once, all the time, in my surroundings, past, present, and future. And it is exhausting maintaining the energy to stay focused in that environment. And you know how the horses have like blinders when they're racing?
yes,
I literally like felt my entire world, like if I've got my arms spread as wide as I can, I felt the whole world center into a blinder. And all of a sudden, the 17 conversations I'm having in my head, the 14 realities I'm wondering if will happen, the three things in my past week that I'm beating myself up over, all of that got quiet. And I had one line of thought. I was very present, and it wasn't high. It wasn't anything like that. It was just there. And dude, I started like I felt water come in my eyes, and I'm about to cry right now thinking about it. Like I started like weeping. And Jocelyn was like, "Are you okay?" And I looked at her and I said, "Is this what a normal brain feel? Is this what you feel like all the time? Like quiet and focused?" And like I sleep with a noisemaker, and Jocelyn always wondered why I did that. And it's because it drowns some of that out. And when I
Hmm.
took that medicine, I knew immediately that my brain was different. I knew that I had to find a way to get that medicine. And then when I got my diagnosis, I talked to the doctor. I hate the term ADHD though a little bit now. I don't like attention deficit disorder. I don't think our brains are disordered. In fact, the way I understand it is, I think through most of human history, the ADHD people were keeping you alive, people, because they could know where the saber-toothed tiger was when you were over there picking berries, right? And like, but in our modern world, it's a huge problem. And then when I talked to the doctor, he was telling me, he's like, yeah, like they just came out with this huge new study where children who are given ADHD medicine in their developmental years up through the age of 25, many of those kids seem to be clearing up and not having adult ADHD because while their brains are neuroplastic and up to 25 years old, the medicine helps them wire their brain so
Hmm.
that when their brain locks and that neuroplasticity is weaker and not as much, they have actually built the mechanisms to be able to actually focus without the medicine at all. But now our freaking brains look like one of those murder investigators with red string all over the place. And like, but it's shocking. And like the first month of the medicine since I've been prescribed it, figuring out when you want to use it is interesting because I think both of us understand that our businesses probably wouldn't exist without having the ADHD and the management that we do. You know what I'm saying? So, like, how, first of all, tell everybody real quick about your business, what you've been doing for the last 10 years, and then maybe a little bit of what it was like running that business before and what it's been like running it after. Because none of the challenges go away, everything still exists, but just how your brain is able to kind of handle that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point to circle back on too, is that it none of the challenges go away. Like
No.
even medication, it's not like this miracle, like everything changes. But you said the horse blinders, like I had a similar feeling as well when, because I always have to work with some sort of headphones on or ear pods or noise canceling because the stimulation, everything comes in where normal brains, I think, would typically filter out some of that stuff. And so I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this feels like noise canceling headphones for my brain. Like
Mm.
the noise would just quiet down and I could think one thought at a time instead of 30 and just literally not be as distracted and scatterbrained. And running a
Mm.
business as itself is challenging, but having the ADHD brain, obviously that there's the creative aspects, which I think are huge blessings, and the hyperfocus. I mean, I could lock in to building something and be there for 12 hours straight and just
12
lock in
hours,
and
bullcrap. You're like 12 days. I always knew when you were in a hyper focus because Joe would disappear from the text thread for like 48 hours. And I'd be like, Joe's down a rabbit hole. We need to go check the rabbit holes real quick, boys, and see what he's working on right now.
yeah, no, I could literally just tunnel vision focus, block everything out. And really, that's kind of what I needed because being so distractible, if I lost that focus or that train of thought got broken, it's so hard to get back into it. Once I'm locked in, I can accomplish amazing things. But getting started has always been historically the hardest part for me.
Very common
So,
thing for ADHD is it's the start.
yes,
It's the ideas aren't a problem. The vision's not a problem. Even the planning is not a problem. But
right.
the way dopamine works in our brain for motivation, all of that kind of takes the place of action in your
Hmm.
brain. And then you can't push the domino to make everything fall down.
It's extremely frustrating. And there's been a lot of different strategies that I've used over the years just to all help me get started, right? Because starting is the hardest part. And once you're in, and you can get a good flow state going. So for the last, to answer your previous question, for the last decade, I've been creating online education, online courses. And so being a creator, course creator, I love research. I love diving deep into topics. And that can be, again, a blessing and a curse because With the ADHD brain, I can just research and research and research, and you have to constantly remind yourself, am I producing? Am I actually creating? Or am I just in motion, feeling like I'm being productive, but not actually, producing or creating anything? And so running my business for the last, I mean, I just recently got diagnosed and started experimenting with medication the last 6 months. And so
Yeah,
I had a similar experience, a very emotional one, like you described, of
totally.
almost the grieving for maybe what could have been, like all of the pain and the struggle and the beating yourself up. You're like, man, maybe that didn't even need to happen.
Yeah,
Or just having these answers for, there's a reason for why I struggle with so many of these things. And it's not that I'm less than, it's not that, I'm dumb or I'm this or, it's just my brain's just literally wired different. So it was this
totally.
awakening, but also a sense of grieving at the same time.
It's a weird
Um,
thing to hold, dude. You know what I'm
it
saying?
is.
It's like I went in knowing that this was the final day when I would get the diagnosis. And I was texting you boys and I was like, going to psychiatrist, here we go. And then like I
Yep.
took all these tests and just they just were like, get out of here, go get your prescription. And like I was like, as when I walked out, I was so happy to just hear someone just affirm what I have went through in 47 years. And I was so happy walking out to the car. And then when I got in the car, dude, I just lost my shit. I just started just that grief hit me all at once of man, if they had just let like I kind of got mad at my parents. I was like, if they had just not, worried about what they felt or how they looked or whatever, maybe I would have got a diagnosis. He had told me that the medication is helping kids to not have it, and I'm like, gosh, could this have been eliminated? And I just went through this like 30-minute like cry. It was so overwhelming. It was it may be one of the top five most overwhelming emotional things I'd ever felt. And then when I kind of woke up with it, after that came out, I was kind of like, okay, Shane Sams can't work backstage in major productions with 10,000 people in the audience and 100 people running around in chaos without ADHD. Shane Sams could not have learned how to build an education company and a personal brand as a school teacher teaching history if he couldn't focus on 100 different things at the exact same time. And like I think about your journey with Learn Scrivener Fast, which is your
Mhm.
company, like you literally just saw a thing and were like, I'm going to learn how to do that. And you just mastered it and then became the guy in that space. So when I was able to hold both things, I was like, okay, I'm not who I am right now. I love who I am right now. And I would not change anything about who I am. And at the same time, I'm still grieving that all the frustration, all the weekly burnout, all the exhaustion that I have not felt in the last month since being on having medication available to take. It's just a weird. It's like a version of you didn't know is dead, and you do have to like grieve that before you can kind of accept it and say, all right, this is where we're at now. What do we do next? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I often think about, man, if I just had this information a decade ago, even just the information, not even the medication, of just because just the constant berating yourself mentally
Totally.
of, why can't I start this? Why am I always late to things? Why can't I just do the thing that I have all the best intentions in the world about doing? And just realizing that information of, well, here's how my brain's wired, and just let's reverse engineer, put systems and guardrails and constraints in place because this is how you need to work. You're not broken, nothing's wrong with you. In fact, it's many times a superpower. I don't think my business would have existed because I have the tendency to become super obsessed with things.
Hmm.
And you point me in the right direction and become obsessed with, a business goal, and I can pull it off. But at the same time, I think my nervous system has just run extremely towards the red line for the last 10 years unnecessarily.
Dude, bro, for real. I'm with you there, man. It is head to toe pain sometimes. And like the
Yes.
systems are funny, and we'll talk about some of those like procrastination and systems that we've used. But what I realize now with the diagnosis and I'm educated about this and I understand myself better is it's not just that we created systems like one thing me and you always talk about, we'll send each other music without words because we know that
Mhm.
like I can't
Yeah.
listen to words and do anything. I've got to have instrumental because the words cause more distractions. You know what I'm saying? But like I noticed, and it was hard to notice that like I've caused pain and problems for myself because sometimes that system is how do I set everything on fire and create an experience that is so overwhelming, my brain will be forced to take action and push me through this procrastination. And I
Yeah.
can see some massive self sabotage that has not only cost me relationships, eroded good relationships that I have, but has probably cost me thousands, if not millions of dollars because I burnt things to the ground because it was the only thing that would make me move. And that
Yep.
is that's what living life with ADHD sometimes looks like. And you don't even realize it.
100%. Like ADHD brains need that adrenaline, that up against a deadline. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to cut it. It's, I'm not going to make this happen. You need that adrenaline in order to make that work.
Yeah, it's the adrenaline which triggers the dopamine. It's the motivation. That's what ADHD is. I hate it's called ADHD. I wish it was called something else. But like the problem is you don't have dopamine production that is needed to motivate you to start.
Mm-hmm.
And you are dopamine deficient, period. It's
Mm-hmm.
not dope. It's not releasing enough. It's not reuptaking it at the right. All these things are happening in your brain. And sometimes the only way I can get that motivation is to literally burn everything down and put my back against a wall that's so deep that I
Yep.
created because
Yep.
my life was actually good and stable for a while. And that's fine. And then you all of a sudden self destruct and you have to just like, you make yourself have to start over. Like you know this. I had a company back in 2023 that I was like, screw it, I'm out. But it was like I didn't have the motivation or the evolution or the language or the things. And I know that part of that decision was I have something else I want to do. I can't make myself start it. So if I burn everything to the ground, and I make a huge change very fast and put my back against the wall, I'll have to act. And that's not good. That
No.
is not a good system for starting things over again.
It's a very hard, stressful way to live, not only for yourself, but for those around you and your family, because they're thrown into this whirlwind as well. My wife has had to constantly deal with me living in a state of chaos pretty much all of the time. And we were high school sweethearts. We went to college together, and she laughs to this day about my strategy in college, how I would be the guy waiting till the last minute to write a paper, and I would somehow pull off a miracle every time. And she said, why don't you just start sooner? I don't understand why you put yourself through this chaos. And I never had the words or the reasoning to explain why. And looking back now, I'm like, I needed that adrenaline, that push. And I hate it in the moment, right? Every time I'm in it, I'm like, why do I do this to myself? But it's the only way I've been able to just get that chemical release in my brain. And I do the same thing in business now, but I've become smarter about it, knowing that I will never launch anything unless there's a deadline. And it's not enough
Yeah.
for me to just say, oh,
A
I'm going to make
deadline
it.
that matters because there's
Yeah.
consequences that are astronomical. Like
Like I have to
that's
announce
what
it
I've noticed.
publicly. I've got to email my list about it. I've got to say a date it's opening. And if it doesn't, they're going to be expecting something and it's not there. I can't just make a deadline for myself and say, I need to launch this by March
I'm going to
1st.
do this by Tuesday. That's just it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do that. That
It
doesn't,
doesn't happen. So most of my launch strategies involve a live webinar. I have to do live stuff, real deadlines, all of that. And it helps me push in. And I'm always editing slides up until the 5 minutes before we're going live.
I
But
just did a
somehow,
presentation Wednesday night, bro, and I literally, I was really proud of myself though on this one because get this. So this is actually the first major presentation. It was hundreds of people, thousands of dollars on the line. So I had the motivation there, but I had the Adderall with me. I had the
Mhm.
medication, and I've been using it more strategically. I kind of look at the event and I'm like, is this satiating to my brain or is it not? Like if I go to the airport because I fly a lot, I don't take it at the airport because the airport that's an ADHD environment. It's like you're just
Mhm.
I love the airport. My brain thrives there. The gym, my brain thrives there. I have no problem getting up and going to the gym. But like sitting down to work on a presentation, now that is something I'm waiting until 3 o'clock and it's due at 6, right?
Yep.
And I actually started this one 3 days early and I finished 4 hours before the presentation was actually ready to be given. That was the earliest I think I've ever not changed a slide. and actually walked out on a stage and gave a presentation because now the Adderall is a trick though,
Hmm.
because if you take it and you don't have an intention written down and you're not knowing what you're going to focus on, you will sit and read the back of a Coke can until you've memorized the ingredients, because the attention will latch on to something, and it's
Yep.
whatever's directly in front of your view, and then it's hard, you can't get back out of it. Well, that was the bad part about Adderall. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Because you can focus. You'll focus on whatever you're pointed towards. And
Yeah.
I've experienced the same thing. But talk about a before and after for you to have
Oh,
time to spare. And so that's such
I
a
had three
smart use
hours. I took a
case.
nap. It was amazing. I was like, do people get naps like this? This is how people take naps. I understand it now. It's crazy.
Yes. Yep. That is one of the things I've noticed as well is it has helped me not live in that chaos mode as much because it can help me actually plan things and take sequential steps and not have to rely on that adrenaline spike from a hard deadline. And I
Yeah.
think back about to how many things I could have probably made better if I hadn't waited for the last minute and then therefore I'm rushing to try to just scrape by and get things, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, those time constraints, they're huge because as we all know that time expands or contracts, given the
Totally.
time allotted to the task or whatever that thing
But
is.
I think that's another problem with ADHD, is because we are so freaking creative,
Hmm.
and we have this track record of, we understand. I was the same way in college. Never went to class. Found ways to get around having to be there. Like I would like go meet a girl who had all the notes, and then I'd study with her the night before the test. You know what I'm saying? Like all these different weird things you do in college. And I
Yep.
was like, when you have a track record of, you look back and you're like, I've never really not got it done, maybe once or twice. Like that
Yeah.
false confidence builds, and your brain knows, I can do this, I can get this done in 2 hours before I actually go live. And
Hmm.
that's the softening of having the dopamine and the norepinephrine and the medicine, is that I can be like, no, I can do it in 3 hours. So why would I not just do that right now, and
Yeah.
and spend the same 3 hours and like get it done? Like that's the
Yeah.
difference in the thought process with the medicine and without.
And not have to deal with the red line hangover for the
The
next two
stress,
days
yeah,
after the
exhaustion.
deadline, where you have to just come down from that, what you just put yourself through.
Yeah,
It's
it's
insane.
kind of, it's very masochist. It's very like hitting yourself in the face with a board
Yes.
sometimes when you're doing
Yep.
that stuff. Our wives, I've been, with my spouse 27 years and married 21 or whatever. How long you and Carrie been together totally, from high school sweethearts
Uh,
to now?
29 years now. Yeah.
It was interesting seeing like her response to it. Like how was her response to it? Like how did you communicate that with her? Was she like, yeah, or was she like what happened there? Because I think that's a huge, our partners are who probably bear the brunt of this, because
Yeah.
I've always been I've always thought of myself as a leader. I've always thought of myself as an action taker and a go-getter. But I'm also very aware that I'm more like Achilles than King Agamemnon.
Yeah.
I'm much better when my skills and talents are directed. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, she's had the reins of that, for years, and that sometimes can be exhausting as well, trying to get
Hmm.
me on track. How did she take that news? Your wife?
Yeah. I mean, I always say thank God for my wife
Hmm.
because she she is the opposite of me. She's very punctual. She's very good with time. She, remembers details that my brain is just like, wherever, I don't know where that went, And so over the years, I've just naturally relied on her to make sure, we get places on time. We remember to do this. We remember to do that. But that has also come at a cost because she's just perpetually frustrated with me of like, you knew we had to leave at this time. Why aren't you ready yet? And so a lot of this realization, of course, I'm sharing the research that I'm finding out with her in real time. I'm like, you're not gonna believe this. Look at this. Like this is part of the ADHD brain. This is a, and she's like, oh my gosh, no wonder you are the way you are. And so it's
Mm,
taken a lot of that marital stress off because she can now realize, well, this is just how his brain works. It's not that he's being insensitive to the fact that he knows we have to leave to be at church at 10 a.m. and he's, the last one in the car, whereas before that would be interpreted as like, he's being
He's
selfish
just
or
doing whatever
he's
he
not being
wants. Yeah, yeah,
sensitive
he
or
didn't
like he
care.
knows what,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, it's literally, I have a challenge in my brain. And so we've been able to work through even strategies to help with that instead of just being like, you're not listening. I've told you, and those kind of things. And of course, since we started researching this for my son, we were very much into the research all together. And so just the more and more she learned and I shared with her, she was like, this makes so much sense. Going
Mm.
back to high school and college days, like no wonder. It was really an eye-opening experience for her as well. And so many things that you just always have associated with ADD or ADHD is just, yeah, the hyperactive, kid who's bouncing off the wall and can't pay attention. And I remember she would have never thought I had it because I always
Yeah, you're
have.
chill as hell, dude. You're just
Yeah,
you're
like
always chill. Like just
I've
like
always I've always
especially
been
when we're just hanging out. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I've always been the calm guy under pressure. I've always been rather successful, got good grades. The things that a lot of people don't associate with ADHD. I'm not the messy type either. I kind of sway to the other side. I'm super perfectionistic and organized. And that usually goes against,
Which I have found is creative avoidance for procrastination. Like
yes, that is
it's
one
a
of
lot of ADHD people. I'm a perfectionist. I'm chill. But it's
Mhm.
compensate. It's compensating, and then like it's like if you tear your pec. Like I had a pec injury, right? And like
Mhm.
but my shoulder kept getting sore because all these muscles were compensating for that.
Right.
So even though you're making the good grades, which I didn't make good grades, but I was successful in other areas, like there's a compensation there that becomes exhausting because something else is carrying the load for the ADHD. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the other part of that too is I've found through research that the ones that do have this really organized, clean part of it is the fact that my brain was always so noisy that any clutter would contribute to the noise and it
Mm.
would just overwhelm me to the point of like I can't even work because there's all this visual clutter. And so having my space organized, clean helps me close one of those boxes and loops in my brain of just like, okay, that's less clutter. Now let me just deal with the clutter that's in my brain and work through that. And so I realized that was me coping with all of these different, parts that we have to cope
Interesting.
with.
So
Yeah.
interesting, dude. Yeah, the kids are interesting too because I did not realize there was a huge hereditary component to it until after I
I
was
never knew
diagnosed.
that as well.
Never
Yeah.
never knew that. Everybody because you always think it's everybody blames freaking childhood trauma on everything these days and like, like, oh no, someone yelled at me once and that must be ADHD. That's not true. That's not how this works.
Hmm.
The environment definitely exasperates it. Like it's
Sure.
like you either have it and it's manageable or you were in a chaotic environment that made it 1,000 times worse and you had to survive. And most of that survival came from shaming and guilting yourself at every time you made the most minor mistake. And that
Hmm.
carries with you. But like the hereditary component is so interesting. I can definitely see in my family where it comes from. My kids are older. We've got one that's older. Did you talk to your daughter about it? Have you talked to your kids about it at all?
Briefly, yeah, yeah. My son,
Yeah,
especially, I've been sharing
because
a
you're
little bit more
working
of,
with him.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
been sharing more of my journey with him of the things that I have. And, even him listening to me talk about it, he's like, Dad, I think I have that. That sounds like me. And like, we have
Uh-huh.
been very careful not to tell him, like, son, you've got it. I don't want him thinking that he's different
Yeah, yeah,
or,
yeah. A diagnosis is just an idea that people have attached to behavior, and you've got to
yeah.
take that for whatever it is. You know what I'm
So I've been
saying?
sort of telling him, like, son, I do think you're a lot like me. And here's the things that are going to be superpowers for you, but here's the things that are going to be struggles for you if you're like me. So
Yeah.
let's think about those. Let's work on those. And, simple things like I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, like I have to have a lot of visual cues. Like I love digital tools. I wish I could use a digital to-do list and all that, but like I have to write it down. I have to have it on paper
Yep.
in front of
I
me.
still
Like I've
have to
got to
do a
see.
paper calendar with a like an actual calendar with squares
Yes.
and like drives Jocelyn crazy. But me and my family, our whole family, we share a Google Calendar. We organize ourselves through the digital thing. It's very useful for that and reminders and all that good stuff. But when we do our like monthly or quarterly planning, I have to print out a physical calendar and I have to draw it and like my travel is in yellow and the kids'
Yep.
activities are in red, and I have to see it visually in front of me, or there's no I can't just make a list in a computer. Like typing doesn't do it. It's got to be handwritten,
Yep.
color coded in my own chaotic style, so that I even have a chance to know what's going to happen and I'm on time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it
Yeah.
frustrates me because I have to do both. Like I do have to rely on the digital tools. So I have to like duplicate everything there to a physical thing.
100%. Yeah.
But, little stuff like that has, and again, having that information, like with my son, like for us to just say, these are your chores, this is what your responsibility is, and like this is what's expected of you. Like in his
Yeah.
brain, if it's like mine,
Yeah.
he just can't hold all that. So it's got to be physical. Here's your checklist of what's
Yeah.
expected of you, and go ahead and check that off when you've completed it. And timers. I mean, I swear, timers are the holy grail tool, not only just for ADHD brains, but like for all brains. Like work against a timer. Give your like the task initiation struggle that we have. My
Yeah.
biggest tool has been like, okay, I don't have to work on this all day, but let me just work on it for 10 minutes. Set a 10-minute
Yeah.
timer, and then you're like, that doesn't feel so hard. I'll work on it for 10 minutes. And then what always
And
happens?
then you work on it 10 hours.
Exactly. It helps you get started, and then there you go. You get
Oh,
through it.
geez, man. It's crazy, dude. Like one of the things, one of the strategies that I think my biggest symptom that I have noticed is time blindness. And because
Yes.
dude, I was raised on Vince Lombardi, 15 minutes is late, football, all this stuff. And like, and it just never could work for me, man. It's not that I didn't want to go to class in college. I'd have 5 classes on a Tuesday. I'd wake up on a Tuesday, go ride my bike, get a coffee, do something. I just was like, oh crap, it's Tuesday. I don't even know what day it is. And like, yeah, one of the things I have really noticed is like, if I do miss a meeting though, man, like if I miss a call or a podcast or I forget something, the shame spiral is hours. It's horrific in my brain what my brain will say to me and
Yeah.
myself when I miss something. Last week, I was in my living room and I was not taking ADHD medication in the morning because I didn't want to do it in the morning. I had other things going on. And I was standing there talking to my assistant and Jocelyn. And out of nowhere, I just went, "Oh crap! I've got a podcast." And I went and I just went running. But I thought that I had missed it, but I was actually an hour early. So I came into my room, I sat down in my desk, and I just started doing something else. And dude, I'm talking like 15 minutes before the podcast, it happened again. I was like, "Oh crap! I have a podcast that I'm supposed to record today," and like it just completely got me. And I was like, okay, this is the thing that I need support on and I need to attack. Of course, my partner has always been a part of that role, but I'm trying to recognize that she's got her own schedule. She's got kids. We got everything going on. She's trying to handle me too. That's ridiculous because I'm probably the busiest one in the whole family. And then I was looking at my phone one day, that wretched phone, the sum of all human knowledge and the thing that we're all is destroying all of our lives. And I was looking at my home screen and it's got all my productivity tools. It's got the Google Calendar and my texts and my emails and all social and all that nonsense. And I was just in there thinking, you know what? I've never thought to do this, but I need to get all my apps off that first page and put a widget there that tells me exactly what's happening in the next hour. And that's the
Mm,
only thing that I can ever see when I get that instinct to look at my phone, right?
mm.
Because anything can take you off the railroad track at any time and only 11% of Americans actually have ADHD. This is not, I forget things every once in a while and, oh, whatever, I'm a little ADHD. It's literally like, no, time does not exist for me. The past, the present, and the future are all happening in my brain at the exact same time. The
Yeah.
past is always this reconstructing story of memories that I probably don't even accurately remember. So I'm mad at myself at, or it's not true. And then the future is always 10 different possibilities at all times. And the now is, man, I hope I look at the right thing and get focused on that thing in the next moment. And like that
Oh,
is hard to explain to a person who understands what a clock is actually for. It's just really hard
yeah.
to put into words.
I mean, I've felt that physically when you said that because
Yeah.
I mean, that is me to a T. My kryptonite is, and I've recognized this script in my brain when I say, let me just check this real quick,
Mm,
or let me just look up this thing real quick. To
yeah.
my brain, it's always real quick, but it's never real quick because then that triggers another thought and that triggers another thought. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're 10 minutes late to a meeting or you were supposed to
and,
leave
and your
and you
brain
didn't.
wants to bounce. That's the problem with ADHD. It wants to do
Yes.
more than one thing at once.
Yes.
And that's when it thrives because that's the only way it can generate enough dopamine by itself to actually be motivated on any of those things, even though you're fractionally attentioned.
Right. Like the ADHD brains are starved for stimulation. Like they
Yeah.
crave novelty and stimulation to where, and people who have this, you'll understand, like if you are in a boring setting, like listening to somebody in a lecture, like there is a physical discomfort. It's not the, oh, I'm just bored. Like it's a physical sensation. Like I've got to do something. I've got to get
It's
up. I got to go to the
pain. It's
bathroom. I've got
literal
to get a
pain.
drink. Like I can't stand this. My brain needs stimulation. And so you've got to figure out ways to make sure you're stimulated on the right things because, historically ADHD brains are more prone to addictions and all of
Yep.
those type of things because they're just looking for that dopamine, that stimulation. And so I love that strategy, putting that right on your lock screen. And so
Totally,
the
man.
second you open that up, you see this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I've had to set reminders like they go off on my
What's
screen
that
every
machine you
hour.
got? The brick? What's that thing you
Yeah.
bought?
Oh, the brick. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I love
Yeah,
that
yeah,
thing.
yeah. It like
So it's an
turns your
app
it
that
like kills
comes.
your phone.
It comes with a little tiny little thing that they call the brick, and you tap it just like you would Apple Pay, and it literally turns your phone into a brick. And then the idea is the only way to unlock your phone is you got to tap this little brick again. And so I will go take this little brick and I will go like hide it somewhere that is extremely inconvenient for me. Like I'll go in my storage, get the ladder out, put it up on the rafter, and then go back to work. And so that when I'm distracted, I'm like, oh, I need that stimulation. Let me check my phone. I'm like, oh, I got to unbrick my phone. Do I really want to go get the
Mm.
ladder out and go all the way up? Like, and you're like, I'll just keep working. Like it's
There
silly
are
that we've
people.
got
There
to
are
do all
people
these
listening to
things.
this right now going, "These dudes are crazy." But
Yeah.
it is a form of insanity. It feels like you're absolutely insane sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? And then the problem is, this is something I've just learned like in the last week as I've just been analyzing all these different things, looking for commonalities in people, what they're talking about, to see if this is something I've felt. But for me and for a lot of people that I've been interacting with, some of our discussions, ADHD is not just an attention problem. When you have a dopamine problem, you have emotional problems too. I have always been an extremely emotional person. You've known me for a long time. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I can go zero to F you very quickly. I can go zero to I love you just as quickly. You know what I'm saying? And there's a thing that I've realized now that is a common problem with ADHD men who have this especially. It's called rejection sensitivity, like
Mm.
where anything, every emotion feels like a 10 to me. Like if I love you at a 10. If I hate you, I hate you at a 10. If you reject me even in the tiniest way, like maybe not listening to, like I'm presenting something and there's an immediate rebuttal of it or whatever, then I go from zero to defensiveness with massive intensity. And there's these huge swings emotionally. And the problem is, like, some people are like me and they just blurt them out because it's just like, bam, I'm in this mode. My emotions change so fast I couldn't throttle my voice. But then I think a lot of ADHD people too, like bury them inside and they keep it internal. And we're always in this internal battle with our emotions. You know, like I had a when I was got that my depression, which was a big part of I know now part this was part of it a couple years ago, and I was sharing with you guys, and I was sharing with some mentors in my life. And we hang out with some ballers. I mean, we've got some really successful people who clearly do not have ADHD. And, you know, I remember during that, some of the advice I got was like, stop being so emotional, you know, like shut up and just get your shit together, like other things like that. And then back then I didn't have any other vocabulary. I was like, God, man, I'm beating myself up. The emotions are swinging wildly. But now I know that, oh, this is a thing. This is something that other men who don't have this probably can't comprehend because they don't feel
Mhm.
it. But I find it's not just attention. It's the external world that's distracting me, but it's my internal world that is really at war. And that's where I've had to go and really start finding peace with this is like the battle is within and
Yeah.
people don't talk about how the emotional side of ADHD affects men really out on the interwebs.
Oh, you're so correct. I mean, you mentioned earlier the shame spiral, which is another one, but the we're hypersensitive to criticism
Hypersensitive. Yes.
and our own criticism and even the criticism of others. And it doesn't even have to be direct criticism because the things that normal people would just brush off, we might take as criticism. Like, oh, you didn't appreciate that thing, or you see a look, like I always say it's a blessing and a curse. I can usually walk into a room and I can sense the emotions, the vibe. I can pick up on the little body language cues of, oh, that person's sort of agitated with that person, and that person's not even seeing it. And you're aware of all of the tension in the room at all of the time. And you could spot these little micro things and take those as criticism. And
Yeah.
then you can go down into this shame spiral. And I have always been labeled as sort of the people pleaser in any group, right? Like,
Mm,
and it's true, because I think if I've always had this feeling of like, well, if people are not pleased with me, then it's criticism, and I just can't handle that. And
yeah.
so it's part of the overachiever in me as well, always trying to achieve in order to get that approval due to this hypersensitivity. And so there are blessings that come with it, because I do think it makes me more sensitive to certain personal relationships. You can read
Totally.
into
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
you can spot
Totally.
problems when other people might not see them, but it's exhausting.
It's
And
exhausting, man. Yeah.
it just goes
Orienting
along.
inside of that is terrible. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like, dude, I can go to a grocery store. And I actually just had this experience at Costco this weekend. So I went to Costco. We were driving yesterday, stopped at Costco. And Costco on a Sunday afternoon, everybody knows, is
Oh my
chaos.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I was walking through Costco. I take days off my medication, but yesterday was the day that I took it because I was in a car, which is total boredom, and that's not going to work. But like I went in there and I noticed that I wasn't paying attention to everybody. And I used to like, it's one reason like I have an assistant that goes to the grocery store for me, because I would go to the grocery store and I'm looking at everyone's face, and like I see this lady frowning and I'm like, God, I hope she's okay. And I see this dude pissed off and I'm like, is he pissed off at me? Did I just cut him off with my shopping cart? And like you're orienting in the world is weird with ADHD, because I think a lot of people are like, okay, I'm sitting in my desk, I'm at my office, I'm checking my email, I'm very oriented by the physical space. But for me, I'm not orienting in the physical space. I've always been a little clumsy. I've been labeled a bull in a china shop by many different people, but I know now it's because I'm constantly. It's like I'm a star in the middle of a outer space, and there's all these other stars, which are other people. And I am creating a constellation of all the people, their mood, their emotions, their facial expressions. They're trying to read into where I fit into that constellation at that moment. Plus, in the back of my mind, my kids at school, my wife is at the nail salon or something, or shopping, or working, or whatever it is. I wonder what Joe's doing today. Where's Brian and Grant at? And then like I'm orienting almost like it's almost like a 3D outer space, like all those expressions, emotions, and then you become and you take on everything for everyone. And like there are times like I love being in front of the crowd, but there are times, man, like I love being on stage and speaking to the crowd because I'm very oriented. Everyone's in front of me. I'm right here. I can't see your face because you're too far away. But the meet and greets that we do where people like come up and take pictures, I want to die because everyone's telling me their life story. Everyone is crying or laughing or whatever. And I'm just absorbing everything because I can see it and people can't see it. Like I knew Jocelyn yesterday was mad at me. I knew it. I could feel it. I just knew it. And it was because she thought of something. She wasn't mad at me, but there was something on her mind. And I could tell. I could just
Mhm.
tell. And this morning she was like, here's what was going on. I'm like, I knew it. I knew it. I knew something was going on. You didn't even have to say it. I just felt it when I was looking out the window. Right. It's like,
Yep.
but it's exhausting. Like just exhausting to have all that on your mind, like all the freaking time, you know? And I think if I could tell anybody anything about how I feel, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I interact with the world differently. I don't think it's bad or good. I don't think your way is better or worse. I don't really consider it a disorder, but I do interact with the world differently. And I also interact with people differently. Like one of my things I know I do is when someone like if you told me something like if you told me, hey, my son got I think has gotten diagnosed with ADHD. I think a lot of people would be like, how's he doing? How's your son? That sounds very difficult. That sounds hard. But like where I orient to the world is Joe, bro, man, I remember when Isaac was his age and he got diagnosed with general anxiety disorder for an event that happened in his life. Like I have to orient myself with my experience but I think people think that's like one-upsmanship or something sometimes. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? We
Hmm.
just orient in the world differently,
Hmm.
and it's not changeable. That's another thing I've learned is that this is manageable, and you can build systems around it, and you can change behaviors and habits, of course, over time.
Hmm.
But we've got this brain, bro. We're in our
Yep.
40s, and it ain't going nowhere, and that kind of sucks a little bit. Yeah.
You know, I've never heard it. I've never heard it said like that. What you just described about, having to interject and orient yourself in a conversation. And that was my mom to a T. Like
Mm,
we used to kind of joke about it. We knew that if we said certain topics, it was going to trigger this story that my mom had told us 50 times. And it was going to be, she just couldn't help it. Like, even though we're like, why does it have to go to that story every time? But it was just like,
that's her thing.
I've heard
That's
the
how she's
ADHD
orienting.
brain described as like we've got too many tabs open in our brain at any given time, like on a computer.
That's a good
And the second
analogy,
you hear
actually.
something
Yes.
and you're like, oh, yeah, I've got that tab open. Yeah, let me navigate to that tab real quick. Yep,
Or it's
yep.
like
There's,
you know how like your tab will be open and you're like, where's that music coming from? Which of these 800 is
oh my
where's YouTube
gosh.
open right now? I cannot turn this music off. That's your brain
Yes,
at all
that
times,
is.
dude.
That is
Yeah.
the perfect example. And if you're like us, your tabs are probably so small that you can't read the labels anymore. And so you have to literally click through all 27 of them and you're like, oh, there it is.
Okay. So this is a real thing. This is happening. One, I do think anyone listening to this ever, if you think you have it, please go to the doctor and check. And if I could recommend anything, like having the tool in your toolbox of whatever medication is available. I've done the research. People are scared of this. I don't want to become dependent on that. But you are dependent on your brain. And
Hmm.
if your brain is not functioning, you can't lead. You can't do it. You can't lead yourself. You can't lead your family. And if you have these tools available that are Adderall is like one of the most tested medicines of all time. Like there's more research done on it than almost anything else, Ritalin, things like that. You got to take your. I'm not telling anybody to put anything in their body, but at the same time, go talk to somebody. But like now in our 40s, like we've talked a lot about this lately. Like we're on the back nine. We've still got a lot to do, but we've also got things to like worry about, like getting older and things
Hmm.
like that. Our families, like, how do you lead when you have an ADHD brain? How do you lead your business? How do you lead your family with a brain that doesn't operate like the majority of other people's in a world where that kind of operation is expected, especially
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. No, that's a tough one. And I think again, that's the benefit that comes with going through the testing, getting diagnosed is knowing what you're working with so you can label things and know what's going on when it's happening. So you're not falling into the shame spiral. You're not just beating yourself up because let's face it, somebody who's constantly beating themselves up, who's in the shame spiral, you're not going to be the best version of yourself to lead because your self-esteem is going to drop and you need to have this confidence to lead, to make decisions. And so for me, it's really helped knowing that, I would often have all the greatest intentions, right? But my follow through just sucked. Like the execution part of it would be terrible. So even if it comes to leading my family and having these great intentions of, oh, we're going to do this family bonding experience, we're going to do that, and be like, now I'll step back and be like, okay, hold on. What's actually realistic for your brain and how you operate?
Mm,
Are you going to be able to follow through with that? And be honest with yourself. And many times it's like, okay, no, I'm not naturally wired to follow through in that way. So let's come up with a different strategy. Let's put something else in place that I can follow through on. Because for me, I think the biggest hindrance over my life looking at the ADHD has been lack of follow through in areas that I had the best intentions of following through, but I, for whatever reason, could not execute based on
yeah.
the blockages, the resistance, the things that I deal with. And looking back, I would approach them the wrong way, like a neurotypical brain would, because that's all the stuff you read. You read all these strategies and you're like, just do this, do that. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Miracle morning, baby. That's all you
Yeah,
need. Miracle
let me just
morning.
do that. Well, I'll give you an example that we talked about recently was, the Eisenhower matrix for
Mm,
prioritizing your tasks. You've got the upper left quadrant, urgent, important, right? The right side, not urgent, but important. And then you've got delegate and delete. And I'm like, I love this. I love frameworks. Let's do this. So I start putting my tasks in that, and everything is in the upper left, urgent and important category. Like my brain cannot decipher everything feels important and urgent all at once.
yes.
And like knowing that, it's like, okay, you're not broken. This is just how it is. So then what's your system for that? How do you break it down and prioritize? And for me, it's like, you know what? You've got, okay, let's work through those 10-minute timer. Once that goes off, move to the next one or pick three. I'll be the guy that's like, I got these 20 things I'm gonna get done today. Like,
Yeah.
no, you're not.
No, you're
Three
not.
if you're
No.
lucky.
Yeah,
So,
right. One probably because you're going to forget the other ones.
yeah, exactly. You're gonna get distracted and be starting on that in no time. So to
Yeah,
lead,
man.
it's just recognizing and knowing yourself and then being honest about what works for you, what doesn't, and building
Yeah.
constraints, building boundaries, setting deadlines, asking for help. I mean, it's been a big help having my wife go through this journey with me because we can talk about this stuff now, and she'll even challenge me. She'll be like, "Yeah, but is that realistic for you? That sounds great." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're probably right. It's not." So
You're
like,
the rational one. I'm going to listen to you, Carrie.
yeah. So I'm like, well, I want this thing to happen for us. So how can we work together to make this happen? And coming up with different strategies than just, oh, I've got these great intentions, but knowing that the execution isn't going to follow.
Yeah, I think too, like, I think you bring up an interesting point there, and this is probably good for everybody, but like, guys, I hate to tell you this, but Alex Hormozy doesn't know what he's doing. Russell Brunson doesn't know what he's doing. Tony Robbins doesn't know what they're doing. I would suspect that most of those guys, I find that entrepreneurs, I think I read a stat last night that said entrepreneurs are 3 times more likely to have ADHD than the general population
Mm-hmm.
because we gravitate to an arena where we feel like we have control because we know we cannot control it. We're time blind. There's a lot of things going on, and I do feel like we're pulled that way. And you have it's not the fact that you have to use this strategy or that strategy, but we can jam on some of our strategies here for a minute because I want to know what you're doing too. But like
Mm-hmm.
you have to find a way to make it work like for you. Like
Yeah.
your brain is not only different than most people's, it's different than everyone else who also has ADHD because we're also wired, even though we have similarities. And that's how I think I've adapted like to survive. The very first thing that I probably did once I suspected this, and especially now, is man, I get up in the morning, dude, and I look in the mirror, and it sounds cheesy, but I look at myself, dude, and I'm like, dude, I love you, man. I love myself. I love the way my brain is. Just like I need a ladder to paint the roof, I'm going to need tools in certain situations to help me get
Mm.
things done. But like that, I've just been trying to be very catching myself being mean to myself about this or making a mistake or messing up because that's where I've started is just myself, like self-love, dude. Like I am the way I am. Like a lot of people know me, and I know a lot of people think favorable of me, and I know there's a lot of people may not like me, but I know that I am worthy of being exactly who I am like right now. So that's been super helpful. Another thing that I have found with my particular tendencies is I do have to win the morning because with an ADHD brain doesn't open its eyes and be like, oh, the birds are chirping. Let's go make a cup of coffee. Let's sit and chill for a minute. My eyes open and I'm like, oh, geez, here we go again. Whoa, everything just floods in. Everything you're supposed to do, everything you didn't do. Where are your kids? Are they awake? Is my wife still here? Is she breathing? Like, what is happening right now? Like, everything all at once, it just happens. I have found that if I can win the morning, I will win the day. But that doesn't mean like some dumbass routine that everybody says you're supposed to do, like ice baths and all
Mm.
that stuff. Like for
Mm.
me, the most important thing that I can do is move, like not exercise, not anything. Like I tell myself as soon as I wake up, I go little post-it note, 10 toes down, remind myself and orient myself. Like so, I get up, I put a shirt on, and I walk into my garage. I get in my car and I drive down to a gas station. And just because I know I've got to come back, so I'm going to get back and do all my things I got to do in the morning. But I have to get moving. I have to make myself leave and go do something. That's been super helpful. I found this other trick that's really helped me lately on the orientation problem because I think that's actually a common ADHD thing is orienting yourself and where you are, what you're doing, what time it is.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I leave myself little notes that say, you were here, you are here now, and you remember. And like I got this from a podcast that I was listening to, and it's shocking. Like I'll post them on my mirror, or I'll post it on the fridge, And like it reminds me like, oh, I'm alive, I'm here, I'm in this space, and I'm not in the 12th future that I was thinking about just now. What other little tips, track things have you figured out for yourself that work for Joe Nicoletti to help you like orient yourself and hang out and actually move forward
Oh my gosh, I have so many. So as you were
besides
talking,
Zen?
yeah,
Besides nicotine,
besides that,
because that's what
as
I'm
you were
doing right now.
talking, my brain was literally opening like 15 different tabs. So let me see if I can sort through all these. You mentioned movement, like getting out and moving. So like my kids go to private school, and so one of the things that I have requested is let me drive them to school in the morning for
Mm,
two reasons. Obviously, one, to be with my kids and spend that time. But also, I know that it does that for me. It gets me moving. It gets me out of the house. It gets me into some daylight, and it's sort of a ritual that happens to work for me.
changes the games different every day kind of deal. Yeah, but the
Yeah. And
same
so
at the same time.
the fact that knowing that the ADHD brain needs novelty, right? And it's why we crave, we'll be in the task and we'll be like, I need something new. I need some kind of new stimulation. It's not wise to go to YouTube and get that stimulation, right? But
Mm,
sometimes working in a different environment can create that novelty. And so
totally.
I have probably three different workstations in my office. Like I have a recliner. Sometimes I'll take my laptop and go sit in the recliner, a standing desk going from sitting to standing. Sometimes I know I need a big reset and I'll literally take my laptop in a car and I'll go drive to a location, even if it's just a parking lot that I've never actually just sat in before, and I'll work from the car in my laptop, like just a different set of
That's genius,
environment.
actually. That's totally novel. Yeah, but it's you're
It,
doing your work. Yeah.
yeah, like so it's the same work, but yet you've changed your environment. And so it feels different and it literally just soothes that novelty craving in your brain.
Sometimes I just
And
sit in the floor. Like I'll just get in the floor because it's totally different angle looking at the room. And I will
yeah,
literally just get in the floor and sit against the wall and it just resets everything for me.
yeah, just like literally anything different. Yeah, different
Yeah.
angle, different environment, different way you're sitting, standing, whatever. And so like knowing that about myself when I start to feel that urge, I'm like, okay, what can I change up? What can I do? Can I stand? Do I need to just leave the house? Do I need to go in a completely different environment? Sometimes I work better from a coffee shop with the external noise, as weird as it is, but just
Yeah.
sometimes that does something. The winning your mornings thing really resonated with me, and I typically don't win a lot of mornings, and it would send me into a shame spiral. And
Yep.
so coming up with a strategy of, okay, so let's assume this happens to you. You don't win the morning. What are you going to do?
Mm.
Historically, maybe I would beat myself up. The whole day would be shot. And so I remember, let's see, hearing a strategy of, you know what? I think it was from Ed Milet, where he would talk about separating his days into different quadrants.
Oh,
And
the six
so,
hour thing?
yeah,
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Like he
it,
lives 3 days and everybody else lives one. But that way,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you mess up in the morning, you've got the second day. You've got your
Well, so
second
that's exactly
chunk.
it. So I've
Yeah.
I've borrowed some of that and going, okay, well, let me separate my days into quadrants. My morning, let's say it's from like 7 a.m. to noon. Noon to 2 would be like another quadrant. So like, okay, if I lose one of those quadrants, well, let me win the next one. And so just try to
That is
win.
genius, bro. I'm totally gonna do that, dude. Like 3 hour chunks. Like if
Yeah.
I if I'm gonna win this 3 hour chunk, and if I lose, I'm gonna get the next one back, and it'll just
And
get back on track.
And so you can break it up into any amount you want. So for me, a typical work day, I view it as three different quadrants. And my goal is just to win two out of three of those. And
Oh,
so
that's
if I
great.
lose one, it's like, well, that's okay. You planned for that. And so
Mm.
make it your goal to win all three. And some days you do. And you're like, all right, give yourself a good old pat on the back. That was a good day. Like, let's celebrate that. But just because you've ruined the morning, you didn't do, you doom scrolled instead of doing your priority or doing your morning routine, instead of the day being wasted, just like, that's all right, let's get back on track on the next one. And usually I'll do some sort of a ritual that involves a reset. Sometimes
Mm.
that's, sitting in my chair, listening to maybe some meditative music for 10 minutes. Sometimes I'm a huge napper. We've talked about that before.
Oh, power naps
23
are a
minutes.
reset for the brain. Yeah. Close your eyes, fall asleep,
Totally.
open them back,
Yep.
start over. Yeah. It's
23
like a
minute timer.
brand new
That's my
day.
reset when I wake up. And then sometimes I'll have a cup of coffee again. I'm like, this is another morning for me. Like, let's
Totally, man.
restart. Sometimes a quick walk around the block. If it's nice out, getting the fresh air always does wonders. But having multiple moments where you can reset and be like, review really quickly. Okay, did I win that last quadrant? Yes or no? If I did, great. Let's keep going. Let's have the momentum going. If not, that's all right. Let's get back on track. Let's win this one.
I do that. A buddy of mine told me one time it was something. This was about fitness training, and he was talking about. I was like, "How often do you work out? Like you're shredded, you're ripped, like you're the most fit dude I know." His name's Jeff McMahon. I'm actually going to have him on the podcast pretty soon. But he said, you know, man, I just try to live in the majority. If I
Mm,
win 4 out of 7 days, if I'm awake 10 hours, 12 hours and I win, 8 of them, like that's how he gave himself forgiveness and grace. And I find myself doing that a lot here as well. Like if I've got 3 tasks today, did I get 2 of them done? And then
mm-hmm.
have some ritual to give myself like some kind of credit. Rituals to me are the ADHD, like it's better than the Adderall. People call them habits, but I think the ADHD brain needs like triggers. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like it needs that
yeah.
ritual. That's why I like cigars. It's honestly why I love Zen is, nicotine does help with dopamine and things like that. But I just like putting one in. I put one in either before the gym or before I work because that's the trigger that I'm about to do the work for that
Mm-hmm.
thing. I have learned this is another thing that I had to let go of was I hate entrepreneur stuff, man, that I bought into like 15 years ago so bad, those first 5 years. Like you gotta hustle, you gotta be, you gotta be you gotta lead your team, you gotta have the call. I was running podcasts 6 in a row, back to back to batch up for the future and all that nonsense. But like I have to have 1 hour between every task. I just have to have transition time. If I'm coming home from an airplane trip, I go to the gym before I come home. I've got to have some kind of
Mm-hmm.
transition and then the orienting thing for me is the hardest part, especially in time and space, because like I do this weird journaling habit. Like I know everybody's like journal your feelings at night and see how you feel, or plan your day, write it down. That's not what I do. I actually don't journal like that. I wake up, and if I wake up at 6 a.m., which is usually about the time I wake up, at 9 a.m. I get into ChatGPT and I have a journal, and I write down exactly what I did in the last 3 hours. I didn't do the project. I took my kids to school. I went to the bathroom. I ate some food. And because by the end of the day, my brain has already edited out everything that I accomplished. It does not give me any
Mm-hmm.
credit for it. It doesn't remember it. I'm totally time blind on everything that happened.
Yep.
And I find that before the next, I guess I'm kind of doing this, before the next chunk, like maybe the next 3 hours is go to Anna Joe's basketball game or whatever that she's cheering at. I have to I review the day. I look back and go, tell me everything I've done today so that I can and then my journaling at the end of the night is just opening that journal and I give myself a smiley face. If I did it, I give myself a little frown, and there's always 20 smiley faces and always 1 or 2 things I got to move to tomorrow, right? So like that's the rituals, the things you do, the knowing you need novelty, so planning novelty, the knowing you aren't going to show up at some meetings, you aren't going to get that stuff done, but not making your own scoreboard. I don't have to get everything done. I've got to get the majority of the things done every day, and it'll all
Yes.
kind of work out at the end, you know?
Dude, I love that strategy of putting into ChatGPT like what you've done throughout the day. Like for years I've done it in day one journaling app.
Yeah.
One of the switches I realized I did because I needed it was I would look at my to-do list at the end of the day and be depressed almost every day and be hard on myself because I'm like, look at all the stuff I didn't finish that I had intended to do. And
Yeah.
it's a terrible way to end the day, right? And as a business owner, the work's never done. There's always more to do. And so
Zoom out. It's
yeah,
eternal. It's infinite, man. We're not ever
infinite.
going to finish, dude.
So I would flip that and instead like, okay, keep a to-do list, but also keep a done list. And
Yes.
look at and then you see like, okay, well, I did do all of these things and focus
Yeah.
on that. And you have this record of, so you're winning on a high note or you're leaving on a high note instead of this depressing, like, oh, shame on me. I didn't
Even the
accomplish.
shame spiral, dude, the giving yourself credit is like, like say you procrastinate for an hour and then you're just like, oh crap, and you get exhausted and you lay down, you have to take a power nap because your
Yeah.
brain's screwed. I took a nap. I rested my body. I did reset the day even off of that little failure. Like just
Yeah.
giving yourself those
You've got to count
dopamine
the
hits is
wins.
good every
Yep.
time. Yeah, man. We'll wrap this up here and I'm sure we'll come back and talk about it more as we continue our journeys of this craziness. But like, if there's a man listening out there who knows this is true about them, maybe they're not diagnosed, right, and they feel this, and then or maybe they have just been diagnosed and they're just going through the roller coaster like of that with ADHD, like maybe they think something's like wrong with them. Like
Hmm.
what would you tell that guy about wiring like R2 insane brains?
No, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. No, I mean, if anything, I really do look at it more as a blessing
Mm,
having this than like if I was given the option, like, okay, you have the ability to trade your brain right now. You can trade it for a neurotypical one. Like I would not. Like
no way.
no, like
Zero chance.
I think you just change your perspective, come to love your brain, just like we do with our physical bodies, our appearance, and so forth. Like, no, you've got to learn to appreciate and maximize what you have. So these are the cards you're dealt. Let's play the hand the best you possibly can. Learn about yourself, create. I've started to create a list of like, okay, these are my triggers. These are the things I struggle with the most. And then just build in strategies and coping mechanisms to know when those happen. Like, okay, yep, there's that thing. I know what's going to happen. This is the plan I put in place there. And just not being so dang hard on yourself. I know it's easier said
Totally.
than done. It really
Yeah.
is.
I think that one thing that is, if you do have ADHD, you really should be in some kind of like therapy at times during the year, because it's like a cache in a computer that fills up no matter how many strategies you have. And like, you need someone that's not your wife and kids to help you clear the cache, just even to process it, that
Yeah.
understands like ADHD, because they're too close to it. You're too close to it. You can't read your own label inside the pill bottle. And you
Hmm.
really do. Maybe it's a psychiatrist or someone who can prescribe you medicine. Like, I'm going to mine next week to talk about what's going on, just to figure everything out, because you have to be able to offload that. And verbal processing is what I find most ADHD people do. I think I've always said that greatness flows through your lips and fingertips. And it's a
Hmm.
catchphrase on my podcast, when I speak, everything. I didn't realize that what my brain was really telling me is, you have to say all this crap out loud because it's piling up in here. And
Hmm.
you've got to have somebody to talk to that understands it and is also not affected by it in their actual life, basically.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say that's huge. Like
Buddies, even just
find
to hang out with.
yeah, find some men that can relate, find some other, people that are like you so you can jam. Like I love the fact that you and I can just jam on this stuff. Like, yep, this
Totally.
is this is what's going. Do you do this? Do I do that? Yeah.
My strategies are definitely brotherhood and therapist. Like, I need both of those in my life at all times. And it's fun because like Joe and I won't say anything like about ADHD for a while. And then one of us might disappear for a minute. And then it's either Shane alive? Is Joe alive? Or all of a sudden, a wall of text of all the
Yeah,
things that
right.
are going on, right? It's just like, ah! I'm just like,
Yep.
and I'm just like, I see you, bro. No solutions. I have no idea what's going on, but yeah, I know exactly what you're going through, dude. It's good.
Yeah, just yeah, finding some guys, some people that just really know what you're going through, it makes a world of difference. And I'm thankful that today there is so much research on this. It's so much more
Totally.
openly talked
It's out in the
about.
open, man. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the stigmas are gone. And, we do live in a challenging world as it is. I think I read something the other day that said, like, just a single edition of a daily newspaper has more information in it than people like centuries ago that lived on the earth would consume in their
Consumed in their
entire
lifetime. Yeah.
lifetime. And so we do have a lot of information coming at us constantly. And so there is some low level of like, yeah, everybody's got ADHD, right? Or everybody's got attention deficit disorder. And so be aware too of like, don't contribute to the
Mm,
mess. Like I have to put
yeah.
myself on an information diet frequently because like it's
Yeah,
not
I'm
wise
done
for
with
me
the
to
news, dude.
consume
I don't watch it.
everything.
Politics, anything I can eliminate. Like, I kind of have this new theory that like, I read that, like, up humans evolved basically to know about 100 people, like in our
Mm,
village. And you really didn't
interesting.
even know all of them. You had like your 5 family members, you had your 20 cousins, and then there were some people that lived in the other farm, basically,
Yeah.
that you knew where they were. And
Yeah.
like, I've really tried to cut down on that and like be like, who
Hmm.
am I actually worried about where they are? Or not worried, but
Hmm.
like, who do I care about and who really cares about me? Those are going to get as much of my attention. Like, I'd rather go on an hyper focused deep dive into the soul of my bro Joe than I would understand who is in the Epstein list. I just don't give a flying
Right.
rip who is in the Epstein list. I don't care. I don't need to know. I can't control that. And it helps, man. It just, God, it freaking helps so much, man, to cut that
It,
stuff out.
yeah, it really does. I mean, one of the phrases too that something you said reminded me of, but like how to stay present when you have an ADHD brain that's thinking about a million things all of the time. Like I have this phrase I repeat to myself that's just be where your feet are. And so,
Mm,
because at any given time, you're like, where's my feet right now? Oh, they're in my office right now, and I'm talking to Shane on this podcast. So, like, that's where I'm at. I'm not thinking about all the other stuff that I've got to do later, my to do list, my family, blah, blah, blah. And when I'm with my family, I'm like, be where your feet are. Stop, put all the work stuff away. And again, it's one of those things that's easier said than done, but I literally will repeat this mantra in my head if I'm struggling with it.
Beautiful
Just like,
trigger.
be where your
Absolutely
feet are.
beautiful, man.
Just be where your feet are.
All right, man. Well, hey, what are you working on right now? What's going on out there? What are you excited about? What's happening in the old Joe world for all the men listening out there? Like, if they want to get a little more Joe, they want a cup of Joe. Where are they going to
They
get
want a
that
cup
at?
of Joe. Yeah, the cup of Joe comes in espresso flavor only, double shot. What am I working on? Yeah, 10 things all at once, all at the same time. They're all going to be great. Of course, I have about 3 different training programs in the works. I teach primarily writers and creatives. I teach them a lot of ADHD strategies actually without ever knowing it, but that work for, neurotypical brains too, just getting stuff done, making sense of our resistance. Creatives just inherently struggle with resistance,
Totally.
perfectionism, all of those things. So, in addition to teaching complex softwares like Scrivener, I've also been teaching AI tools, how to integrate, use those in
Very important right now.
keeping at the forefront of how to do all these things ethically without losing our voice and our creative edge. And so I'm working on several new AI training programs. I do have a daily focused writing time live group like writing session called Unchained
Which is
Writer.
basically like, you know what I've learned this is called? I know me and Joe developed this, and like we were talking about this. This is called body doubling, is what that
Yes,
Unchained Rider
it
thing is,
basically
dude.
is.
It
Yep,
is
yep.
body doubling, which is a strategy for ADHD where someone's just in the room with you and that somehow makes you keep moving, right?
Yep.
But it is body doubling for creatives, basically. It's genius. Like, go ahead and tell them about that and where it is and all that
It's
good
so
stuff.
funny that you mentioned that because as I was doing this deep dive research on ADHD stuff and I came across that, so I was like, oh my gosh, that's Unchained Writer.
Two ADHD people at a coffee shop invented
Yeah.
a
And
freaking
I remember
body doubling membership.
I
Oh, man.
basically created it like for myself because I'm like, hey, I wonder if I'm struggling to make myself sit down and do the work, right? And so I wonder if I had somebody else just join me and we do the work together. And then that became a small group of like, hey, does this work? Let's just set a timer. This is literally all it is. We set a timer on the screen, 60 minutes of focus time. And it's evolved into this thing where we have multiple live sessions throughout the day, people joining from all over the world, different time zones. And it's what are you going to work on for the next 60 minutes? Let's lock in, use it as an excuse to put this as a meeting on your calendar, no
Mm.
interruptions. And we focus, we work for 60 minutes. And then at the end, you come back and you get to say your wins. What did you do? You get to pat yourself on the back, take credit for stuff. And the momentum that has generated from just doing that, it sounds so silly because you're like, well, couldn't I just set a timer for myself and do the work? It's like, yeah, you could, but do you? Can you follow
Exactly.
through and do it? And for some reason, most of us, we can't. But knowing that other people, they see that same countdown timer, hey, they're in there working. You feel this like guilt of like, well, I need to be working too. I'm going to honor this group or whatever it is. And so, yeah, that's been super fun. I host personally 3 of those sessions a week for me live. We do them live and I have a couple other hosts and it's been a fun thing. So thank God for that. And it's a way to have connection in this world of
What's the URL where people can go look at that at?
unchainedwriter.com. So,
Unchainedwriter.com, baby. And everybody's
yep.
writing these days. So you're going to be writing something. It's for everybody writing anything, basically. Just get in there and make it happen, dude.
Yeah.
You have
And we
people just do
actually,
their emails, like just check their emails and get them all done, knock it
oh,
all out.
totally. We've had people join that are like, hey, I don't necessarily write, but I'm a painter and I should be painting things. And I'm struggling with that. I procrastinate. They're like, come join us. So they
Dang,
paint during those
dude.
60
Oh,
minutes. Yeah, we have
yeah.
others who they struggle. They want to do the morning pages routine, right? From Julie Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. And so they use that as an excuse, like I'm working on that. Some are editing, some are, it's amazing. Anything you
It's amazing.
procrastinate on. 60-minute timer with a group
You should
works
change it to
wonders.
Unchained Procrastinators.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Just,
literally yeah,
and then
what it
just
could
pimp it
be.
out like that. All right,
Yep.
bro, man. Dude, I love you, man. Thanks for coming out here and being vulnerable. This shit's hard to talk about sometimes, man. But like it's just true. And nobody's gonna
Hmm.
get it but you. So you gotta do something about it, man. You're a great
Yep.
man, Joe Nicoletti. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, y'all. That wraps up with Joe Nicoletti. Man, I love conversations like this because, I think as men, we have a lot of things in our life that we kind of view as flaws, like something's wrong. Maybe you have ADHD, and maybe you've got other habits you want to get rid of. Maybe there's something else, happening in your life. And I think our default, because the society tells us, is we just need more discipline. We need more focus. We need more willpower. But the truth is, a lot of this stuff is wiring, guys. It's programming from your childhood, dogma from your church, it's society or whatever it is. And, with the challenges that comes with that, it's a superpower too. Like, I'm an intense person. I'm known for my intensity, but my intensity is one of my greatest strengths. It can be one of my weaknesses. Creativity, pattern recognition, energy, vision, like all these things that come with ADHD or anything that you're dealing with and struggling with as a man that maybe you don't have anybody to talk to about. Maybe your wife doesn't get it. Maybe the people around you have labeled you in a certain way. You're distracted, you procrastinate, you got emotional swings. But, what I hear is you got a full life. If you're distracted by a bunch of different things, that's because you're living a full life. If you're procrastinating and putting stuff off, or you're anxious about something, you're only anxious about things that you love. You have emotions, bro. Like, emotional swings might be because you're suppressing that. And it's forgotten by society that men do have those things. Like, we're all struggling with stuff. And, we all have superpowers. We all have curses. Some of them are generational curses. Some of them are curses we've brought on ourselves. Our job as men, good men who have a desire to be great on our own terms, our responsibility is to understand it, is to take ownership of it, is to figure out a way to regulate it, to work with the river in flow and not swim against it. It's our responsibility on our pursuit of greatness as men is to communicate it with our spouse, with our business partners, with our team, with our kids. And, when we stop shaming ourselves and guilting ourselves, that's where the real work can begin. So we can understand how our brains work, how our minds work, how our emotions work, how our spirit works. Great men do not deny their wiring. They learn how to steward it. They learn how to not control it. Control it is grasping, but they learn how to surrender to it. And, if you've got ADHD, you got anything else going on in your life, maybe you've made some failures and some mistakes. Let me tell you something that I have to say to myself in the mirror every single day, man. Bro, you're not broken. You're exactly who you were meant to be. You're exactly who you are. Everything in your life has led to this moment. And you've got greatness within you. And all you got to do is start defining that and getting after it, making a plan to go get it. And, one of the most important things that's happened to me in my life is a group of men like Joe, my buddy that was on today. Joe's one of my great friends. I've known him for over 10 years. We're in a text thread with some other bros, and we text every day. We don't try to solve each other's problems, but boy, we'll listen. And, there's a lot of days as a man that are hard. And boy, it's good to have some guys that make you laugh, some guys that won't judge you for having some emotions, who let you be a little vulnerable, who let you cry a little bit, who let you laugh a little bit and let you have a good time, but are there for you when things happen in your life. And if you're looking for a brotherhood of great men, we're building one over at greatmen.org. You can check out our online community. We do have a free tier if you want to jump in and check that out. It's a place to hold space. It's a place where you can be vulnerable. It's a place where people are not going to jump in and just try to solve everything and fix everything. I truly believe that every man listening, the answers are within you. And we just got to be able to say it. We got to be able to work through it. And you can figure things out by yourself, but it's a whole lot easier when you're surrounded by other good men trying every day to be great in a way that they choose. So check that out over at greatmen.org. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can follow me over on Instagram at Shane Sams Creates. You can also look me up, Shane Sams, on YouTube, and check out the video edition of the podcast if you're listening there. And yeah, man, I'd love to hang out with you. I'd love to get to know you, and I'd love to support you as you pursue greatness in your life. Make sure you tell somebody about the podcast. If you got some bros, you got one of those text threads like I do, drop this episode of the Great Men Podcast in there and invite them over to what we're doing over at greatmen.org. That's all the time I've got right now. Based on this conversation, I think I need to go take my medication and get back to work on some other things. I'll see you next time.